Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Calls increase for government to improve access to health services and health issues. Health officials report improvement in COVID vaccine. And later in sports, Reggae Boys battle to draw with Canada in the World Cup qualifying. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. An urgent plea for the government to increase the number of mental health professionals in Jamaica. This follows recent violent incidents involving people with mental illness. Shamala Pullen reports.
The calls for improvement in mental health services follow the recent incident in St. Catherine, where a mentally ill man attacked and killed a police officer. There was also another incident in St. Anne over the weekend in which a well-known laborer met a tragic end when he was beheaded by a mentally ill man in the town. While progress has been made to address issues relating to mental health, the demand for officials in mental health care continues.
What we need to do is to shift resources to community care. You maintain some functions, the Bellevue Hospital, but for those long-stay people who are stable and really homeless who need and less intensive community care, these people, we need to develop more of these services at the community level.
Head of Mental Health Policy at the University of the West Indies, Professor Wendell Abel believes the resources needed to address the mental health crisis in Jamaica were severely challenged last year due to the impact of COVID-19.
How many more people have to suffer? How many more people have to die before we deal with it? Obviously, it's a matter that needs to be addressed, but the challenge we face right now is that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and it means that a lot of your health resources are directed towards managing this pandemic, and this is part of the challenge that we now face.
Nurse Administrator at the Committee for the Upliftment of the Mentally Ill in St. James, Joy Crooks, remain adamant that efforts must be taken to improve the problem.
The community mental health service cannot operate just on the basis of what we have in place here right now. The gaps are too huge, so that it's bound to have hundreds of persons falling in between the gaps. And when they fall so far, that's when you end up with persons on the street.
In the meantime, Professor Abel believes if the right measures are put in place, then it would yield good results.
By aggressive treatment and community engagement, because part of it is that you have to ensure that they are reintegrated within the community, and beyond reintegration to ensure that the patient and family get the full support of the mental health services. So it can be done. Man not dead, no call him duppy.
October 10 was recognized as World Mental Health Day under the theme, Mental Health is an Unequal World. Shamala Pullen, TVJ News.
And health officials in St. Anne are reporting an increase in the number of persons taking the COVID-19 vaccine. However, Medical Officer of Health for the parish, Dr. Tamika Henry, says the numbers are still not where they should be. The health team is hoping that with several vaccine sites set up across the parish, along with public education, more persons will take the jab.
Over 300 doses of COVID-19 vaccines were administered in the parish of St. Anne on the weekend. The areas that were targeted include Exchange, Middle Buxton, and Civil Heights. Medical Officer of Health for the parish, Dr. Tamika Henry, says the aim is to reach a significant number of communities before the end of this year.
So when we look at our numbers, we have about 18% of our population that has gotten one dose, and we have over 10% that has gotten 2 doses. We hope and we anticipate that with the increased level of support that we're getting from other entities and agencies, that we should be going up at the end of the year to hopefully over 20% of our population being fully vaccinated, and of course at least about 30 to 40% of our population getting at least a single dose.
So far, over 53,000 doses of vaccines have been given in the parish. Dr. Henry says over 35,000 doses were AstraZeneca, 14,000 Pfizer, and the rest Johnson & Johnson.
We would have started our vaccination program from March 10th of this year. In the parish of St. Anne so far, we have given over 53,000 doses of the vaccine. Of significance, over 70% is AstraZeneca vaccine. When we look at at our total AstraZeneca doses that we have given over 35,000 doses, and with regard to our Pfizer vaccines, we have given over 14,000, and of course the rest is Johnson & Johnson.
Dr. Henry says persons are still testing positive for COVID-19 in the parish, and so the health department will continue to push to get more persons vaccinated.
So far, we have had over 5,300 cases. Of course, we continue to observe our 1 to 1.3 male to female distribution. Of course, 30% more females being affected than males. And we continue to note that our working age population is most significantly affected, and that is those between 25 up to 60 years old. We're asking persons to come out to get yourself vaccinated. And
Shamela Pulen, TVJ News.
Over 120 homeless people will be fully vaccinated within the corporate area as of Thursday, October 14. Mayor of Kingston, Delroy Williams, gave that projection following another vaccination blitz session for homeless people on Sunday. At that blitz, some 60 homeless persons were being given the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Since we started doing vaccinations, we've had many of our patients that we know who come to our clinics who have been accessing the vaccines. So sometimes they tie it in with their clinic visit, because most of our locations where we have our mental health clinic, we also have vaccination available. So many of them have already had their vaccines and are fully immunized. They have been vaccinated fully for COVID-19. Some of them would have taken the single dose, others would have taken the dual dose vaccine. So we have had ongoing intervention with them.
In the meantime, Mayor Williams said there will be some revision of a stance taken last year. The announcement was for no admission to be allowed at night shelters in a bid to protect the registered residents.
To be rehabilitated, and those who need to go through some kind of counseling so that they can have a turnaround in their lives. So in regards to what is happening, and if there are possible increases, we hope to capture that information within the survey so that we can address the situations accordingly.
Government Senator Dr. Sophia Longmore is calling for the implementation of a research industry to not only boost employment, but to address mental illness across the country. Dr. Longmore, who is also a psychiatrist, says people who are unemployed are more vulnerable to mental illness.
Across countries, the mental health of unemployed people and those experiencing financial insecurity are worse, especially for the general population. A trend that predates the pandemic but seems to have been accelerated in some cases. Mental health services, Mr. President, were already overstretched before 2021.
A recent survey conducted by Northern Caribbean University researchers revealed that the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown measures have triggered an increase in the number of people suffering from emotional issues. The survey was conducted in June and July 2021 with about 500 participants. The research showed that a little more than a third of all respondents reported suffering from depression since the pandemic, with nearly 70% experiencing some form of psychological issue.
We're in a virtual space, Mr. President, and we have heard how data and research is needed. Let us seek to create a research industry. This is something that could drive employment. This is something that could be used in a way to enable and to give hope to persons who are significantly traumatized.
Dr. Longmore was speaking in the Upper House on Friday. The country's COVID-19 hospitalizations have decreased. This as 419 people are now hospitalized with the virus, down from Saturday's 429. 30 patients are critically ill, while 53 are moderately ill. There are 29,347 active cases on the island. Now on Sunday, Jamaica recorded 258 new COVID-19 cases from 1,203 test samples. The overall case count is 86,384. The positivity rate is at 20.5%. Meanwhile, 25 people died from COVID-19 between August 23 and October 8. The death toll has increased to 2,025. 2 deaths are under investigation. And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when you return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. The family of 5-year-old Danique Salmon is calling for increased efforts to assist in capturing the men responsible for her shooting death in Doheny Park, St. Andrew last week. As O'Shane Masters reports, the opposition also visited the family and is again raising concerns about the country's crime problem.
The family of 5-year-old Danique Salmon is still trying to come to terms with her death. Salmon was shot and killed in her sleep last Thursday morning in New Haven, Doheny Park, some minutes after 1 o'clock. Her mother, Carrie Ambrose Salmon, says her daughter should be celebrating her 6th birthday at the end of this month.
She said she wanted unicorn. I ordered the unicorn stuff for her. They arrived yesterday and no then for the party. I shouldn't be planning my baby funeral. I should be planning her birthday party.
She says her daughter had dreams of becoming a scientist. Mrs. Ambrose Salmon says Danique would render assistance to her family members if they fell ill, only now to see her daughter's life being cut short by hoodlums.
I not lie. I wouldn't mind on help catch them. I wouldn't mind on help catch them. Please. No mother not supposed to bury them 5-year-old. She not living a life yet.
Opposition leader Mark Golding, who visited the family over the weekend, said these rampant acts of criminality show that the government does not have crime under control.
It's all too common all across Jamaica because of the lack of any program to address this sort of thing and tackle it head on. And consequently, all we are left with is inadequate law enforcement measures which do not protect the people.
He says this is evident as the homicide rate has gone up more than 10% since the start of the year. Opposition spokesman on national security Peter Bunting believes that the lack of social intervention is a major cause of the rampant acts of criminality.
But we need some balance in the approach to combating crime long term. It can't only be crime control measures, more police and soldiers. It has to be some crime prevention measures, investment in building the infrastructure in these communities.
He further notes that budgetary constraints cannot be blamed for a lack of intervention from the Andrew Holness administration in effectively dealing with crime.
The capital budget of national security has been more than twice education and health combined. So it shows that it's not a lack of resources, but somehow it's being misprioritized.
To other news now, after years of flooding caused by poor drainage, residents of Bonita Crescent in Mandeville, Manchester are breathing a sigh of relief. A major drain cleaning operation was carried out in the community recently by the Manchester Municipal Corporation.
Whenever it rains, the community of Bonita Crescent in Mandeville, Manchester is significantly impacted by flood waters. Residents say this has been the norm for years. It's understood that this drainage system has been the source of the flooding.
This pit was not retaining, could not retain the water as it should because the inlet was blocked by plastic bottles and all type of debris that came down from all around.
One church leader in the community says services are badly affected when it rains.
When the water comes down, this place is a lake, and then most times it spreads over into the churchyard and even down into the basement of the church.
He says part of the problem comes from residents disposing their garbage in the drains.
But some people throw garbage in this area, and then the garbage that comes down compounds the problem. So when we clean up, we have to clean up a lot of garbage from the churchyard as well.
Councillor for the Mandeville Division, Jones Oliphant, says the Manchester Municipal Corporation has since addressed the issue.
Over the last couple of rains that we had, it was blocked based on the amount of plastic bottles and debris that blocked the water going into this pit.
He is appealing to residents to stop disposing garbage in the drains.
Let us try to preserve the environment by bagging our household waste as much as possible. That which can be recycled, we recycle them. and that which we can use as compost, we use it as compost, so that we can lessen the flooding that we have around, like what we had here.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
We go now to the Business Minute with O'Shane Masters.
The Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, JHTA, says more than 98% of its members who participated in a survey are in favor of a COVID-19 vaccine mandate for the sector. In a release, the JHTA said the member organizations have also said new employees being recruited to tourism entities should be fully vaccinated. JHTA President Clifton Reeder says a survey was conducted among heads of large and small hotels last weekend. Some members were concerned about medical exemptions. However, the executives noted that once these were sensitively handled, they would be in agreement. The JHTA has joined other groups, such as the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, on a vaccine mandate stance. Southwest on Monday cancelled over 300 flights. According to flight tracking website FlightAware, that amounts to 1 in every 10 flights. Southwest cancelled more than 2,000 flights over the weekend, leaving passengers, planes, and crews stranded across the country. The company says the scheduling mess started Friday with weather in Florida and air traffic control issues in the region. Southwest says because it is flying fewer flights right now, recovering from operational challenges takes longer than usual. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm O'Shane Masters.
Now for the top regional and international stories, here's Sandy Williams.
On Monday, the Barbados-based Caribbean Tourism Organization, CTO, said the region has outperformed the rest of the world in the first half of this year as Caribbean tourism destinations continue their journey towards some semblance of normality as a result of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. CTO said the first half-year performance was boosted by a second quarter spurt when overnight tourist visits to the Caribbean jumped between 10 and 37 times greater than those in the corresponding months in 2020. It said there was a steady improvement as arrival numbers increased from 1 million in April to 1.2 million in May to 1.5 million in June, according to data compiled by the CTO's research department. On the international scene, Czech President Miloš Zeman is in a stable condition in intensive care after he was hospitalized following a dramatic election that saw a majority of voters reject the country's populist prime minister. Zeman, who plays a crucial role in choosing the next prime minister, was admitted to Prague's Central Military Hospital on Sunday after holding talks with embattled MP Andrej Babas. In Saturday's close vote, most voters backed two opposition coalitions who now have enough seats in parliament to form a government. The Czech Republic's political future remains in limbo while Zeman is being treated. One of the president's main constitutional roles is to select the next prime minister to form a government. And that's the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And it's now time for a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have your Midday Sports.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Head coach of the Reggae Boys, Theodore Tappa Whitmore, feels a Sunday's 0-0 draw with Canada in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers was 2 points dropped. The Jamaicans remain at the foot of the table but have moved up to 2 points.
I think we achieved that this afternoon. I think we could have squeezed one past the Canadian team this afternoon and deserve our 3 points. But again, kudos to the performance of the boys tonight.
Forward Andre Gray was making his home debut for Jamaica and says there is enough games to turn the campaign around.
No, it's a good feeling. Obviously made my debut quite a few months ago now, so it was good to finally play at home, but obviously a shame the fans weren't here. From my experience, things changed very quickly. I think you just seen US lost, so it changes quickly. If we go and win on Wednesday, and then we can go and do the same next month, we're looking at a different table. 9 games is a lot of games, and there's a lot of points there to be won, and I think as you can see, no one's running away with it, so we're still in it. So.
The Reggae Boys will next be in action on Wednesday against Honduras in San Pedro Sula. In other matches across the region, the United States were stunned by Panama 1-0 in Panama City. Anibal Godoy scored the all-important goal for Los Cananeros in the 54th minute. Over at the Azteca Stadium, Mexico blanked Honduras 3-0 to move to the top of the table. Sebastian Cordova, Rogelio Funes Mori and Herving Lozano were the goal scorers in minutes 18, 76 and 86 for El Tri. And in San Jose, Costa Rica recorded a come-from-behind 2-1 victory over El Salvador. Jairo Henriquez gave El Salvador a 12-minute lead before Brian Ruiz equalized for Los Ticos in the 52nd minute. Celso Borges got the winner in the 58th minute from the penalty spot. World Athletics have ratified Jamaica's world record in the women's 4x100-meter relay at the World Under-20 Championships. The quartet of Serena Cole, Tina Clayton, Karika Hill and Tia Clayton sped to 42.94 seconds to claim the gold medal at the championships in Nairobi, Kenya earlier this year. This broke the old mark of 43.27 seconds, which was set by Germany at the European Under-20 Championships in 2017. This was one of Jamaica's 3 gold medals at the championships, as Jamaica ended the event with 3 gold, 6 silver and 2 bronze medals. This was one of 6 world records ratified by World Athletics on Monday. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Giovanni, it is over to you.
Thanks, Simon, and that's it indeed for your Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.